All right, hello. We are at topic 7, human impact, and this is the first lesson, population growth and resource consumption. So let's get started. So let's take a look at the human population over time. So 60,000 years ago, which when we take a look at the Earth, that is not that long ago, the human population was at 600,000. Okay. And then 10,000 years ago, so we're coming closer to modern time, that population had about 6 million people, which is a huge jump from 600,000. That could be from the warming climate, it could be from improvements of hunting and fishing techniques, and then at around the 1800s, we were at 1 billion people. Okay. And then today we're at 7.9 billion people. So we could see that's a huge increase from 60,000 years ago. That could be from modern medicine. We have more technologies available for us to live longer and reproduce more often. All of those things can be a reason for why we have so many people on Earth today. Okay, so we've already talked about population growth a while ago. So an increase to population can be from the amount of births being more frequent than the amount of deaths. And it could also be from immigration, so moving into a population. And then a decrease in population can be from deaths or emigration, which is a movement out of a population. Okay. And remember on the last slide, we saw a huge growth in population over a short amount of time. That was called an exponential growth. That's when a population grows at a constant rate, so it grows more and more rapidly over time. So as we see in this picture, there's two bacteria, and over time, all of those are reproducing. So from 2, we grow to 4, 4, we grow to 8, and then those 8 keep growing and growing at a constant rate. So it's growing at a more rapid time. Okay, this happens faster with a larger population. There's a faster growth because they're doubling and growing at a constant rate. So therefore, the larger population will make the exponential growth be higher. And then this growth is also limited by factors like space. So if we don't have enough space for all these people or all of these animals, that will limit the growth. And resources. So if there's not enough food to carry this growth rate, that will limit that growth. Okay. So when we look at population relies on the resources available. So as population increases, so does the need for resources. Okay, so everyone needs to eat, everyone needs to have shelter, everyone needs to have water. And as we see these increases in populations, this may cause some constraints in human activities in the future. So if there's so many people who need that much food and water, we may have to limit our use of water for recreational activities, so we might not have pools or things like that. So as the population increases, so does the need for resources, and that may constrain what we can do in the future. And as we know, resources are not evenly distributed, and over 700 million people do not have access to that safe, clean water. Okay, so in that picture, we see that there's places where there's little to no water scarcity, and there's places where there are some water scarcities and may be approaching that water scarcity. Okay, so what does this mean for Earth? How does our population impact Earth itself? So we use a lot of resources. Using those resources limits their amounts, especially for non-renewable resources, because remember there's a finite amount and we can't get those back. Drilling and mining for these resources can damage the land and damage the habitats of animals. And often for some resources like food, many organisms are overexploited for that consumption of food. It also creates waste and pollution from mining and from burning these fuels or these resources. And remember that pollution is the contamination of the Earth's land, their water, or air. Okay, so using certain resources can create this waste and pollution. And overpopulation creates problems like climate change, habitat loss, extinction, and human conflict, because there's not enough resources that might create conflict between one another to obtain those resources. So we need to balance these costs and risks with our economic, our social, and our environmental benefits in order to create a life that we can sustain throughout our future. So we need to balance our needs in a way that it is both economically benefiting us, socially benefiting us, and environmentally benefiting us. So we have all of these factors that we need to take into account when we make our choices. So for conservation, we remember that conservation is using less of a resource so that it could last longer. And we also can use a sustainable thinking. So giving time for our resources to recover in order to maintain them in the future. So when we log or when we cut down trees, we might be planting a tree while we cut down that tree in order to maintain that resource for the future. Okay, and for conservation, we might use or save water, so using less of that water so it could last longer. So all of these things we need to take into account when we look at our population, our growing population, as well as our limited resources. Okay, so that's it for population resource needs. I hope this helped.